Well, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, day after the big election in Canada. Some people are pleased, some people aren't. It's all good, man. See how it goes. Anyways, I'm sitting down here this morning with a series of Husqvarna saws that were the kind of the king of the woods here for Husqvarna and the Husqvarna brand. Originally came into the west coast of Canada here. Before Husqvarnas and some models of stills were out in the bush around here on the west coast. We had old big stills like 075s, 056s, McCulloughs, 125s, 850s, 81s before that. But when McCullough started coming around, Husqvarna started coming around, they took over pretty good. They're quite reliable, good power, not bad to work on, just great saws. So you probably heard on Buckin's live the other day that I'm going to do his 394 that he started falling with. This is his 394 right here, the one he got hurt with, and the one he started falling with that the Walker family gave to him when he went to his first falling job. He wanted a smaller saw. We said, no, you need a 394. So we made him take the 394. This saw has got a fair bit of use on it. We're not sure what's been modified in it. He thinks Bear Claw did a little bit of cylinder work on it, but we'll find that out when we get it ripped apart. It did come, he sent it here with this kind of dual kind of pipe here. It's kind of cool. I think Bear Claw made these. Kind of neat. We'll see if that's what he wants on it when we go to put it back together. But I wanted to talk first about the series of these, 94cc saws and 99cc saws. Mostly Husqvarna numbers are usually the last digits are your cc's of the saw. They vary a little bit, a cc or two, but they're real close. We're still, I still this day I could never figure out how they did their number systems with their cc's, but that's another story. So let's start off with the first ones that came around. This is an 1100, okay? The 1100 here had a one-piece top cover. Did not have the manual oiler. It only had an automatic oiler. It had a different trigger system here. And no chain brake. They might have came out with one at the end, or a guy could put a 2100 one on it if they wanted to. These are the West Coast handlebars that were made for the West Coast of Canada here. And I believe some went down in the US as well. I'm not sure if they're sold through Husqvarna or Husqvarna had them made here. Peter Holmquist's distribution at Pacific Equipment, and he'd put them on for people because they mostly came half wrapped, just like the picture here from Mike Akers Chainsaw Collector's Corner. I got all the information here for the 1100, 2100, 394, and 395, but I don't have one here, but I'll explain that to you later when we put this saw back together. I'm going to show you the differences between 394 and 395. There wasn't a lot, but we'll talk about the pros and cons about it. So the 1100 here, yes, comes in at 99 cc's, 40 mil stroke, 56 millimeter bore, okay? So that's where they got their more cc's, was it's a longer stroke than the 394, and I'll go over that in a second here. So yeah, these were introduced, they claim here on Mike's site, 1973 to 1975. Okay, so that was, I was 7 years old then when they were introduced, if this is all correct. It's pretty accurate on the collector corners, but there is a couple things that I'll show you here in a second. So the 1100, yeah, was a good saw, man. A good Tillotson carburetor on it, an RK23 carb kit to it, but the carb was a 136V series, an HS. Never any problems with them, really. The ignition systems were pretty good. Did have a few problems with switch wires and stuff after a while, or mounts. Guys would run long bars and wreck some of the rubber mounts, but just a good workhorse, just like the good old 2100. So yeah, so 1100 kind of got put in its place, and then as they phased that out, they came out with the 2100. Now the 2100, same cc's, 99 cc's, 56 millimeter bore, 40 millimeter stroke. They say it was made from 75 to 85, 10 years. I'm not quite sure on that, but I would say that's pretty accurate. The serial number on this one is, what do we got here? It's got a 4 at the beginning. Oh, it's kind of hard to see. It's a bit scratched up. Anyways, so yeah, that's the 2100. The difference between the 2100 and 1100, you got a manual oiler, a Foley magnesium or aluminum tank with a different throttle lock, a 2-piece top cover. And the reason that is my dad told me a story, old Peter Holmquist, that owned the Pacific Equipment, that was the Husqvarna distributor here for years before Husky Canada took it over, or Husky America, I should say. He wanted a 2-piece cover because a 1-piece, it's too many screws and you don't need to take all that apart just to get your air filter clean. So for maintenance wise, the 2-piece cover was better, even though they had some problems with the screws, but you just had to keep it in good shape. Keep your rubber grommets up here in the top cover in good shape, or if you didn't, this thing just rattles and the screw comes loose and they fall off. So the rubber grommets in the top cover here were very important. They're a little hard to find now, but just try to find some sort of replacement if you need one. They also had a very good Tillotson carb on them. The 136A, which had an internal governor on the carburetor. And just yesterday, actually, I had a friend of mine, Steve 2100, send me a message. He's got an old 1100 he was messing around with, and he was trying to figure out what that little brass screw was on the side of the carb. I said, that's the governor. And the way the governors worked on these was off the vibration of the motor. Very interesting. So I had the spring with this ball in the carburetor, and the things would rev up so high, this thing would flood it with fuel and make it not over rev. So we didn't have the rev limiting ignitions in those days, right? So yeah, but very reliable saw, probably the king of the woods, just like the old McCullough SP125 was, which there's a couple behind me right now that me and my friend Chance are fixing up here tonight and tomorrow night. But yeah, the 2100, not a lot of problems with them. Most guys, maybe the odd clutch spring, mounts, just a very reliable saw. I remember in the logging camps, sometimes they needed a saw up the back end to cut a new tail hold or something for the wire for the the spar, the yarder. They would send this sucker up on the choker, it'd bounce off stumps, it'd get up there and still be just bop, 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 running away, just like a nice tuned Harley at idle, right? Just a great power horse saw. A lot of people made these into racing saws, which I have as well. And my dad, Bobby Walker, was pretty much the king of the 2100s there for a while before he got into the 3120s and the 395s and 4s. So there we go. There's your history of your 1100, 2100. You see me work on a few of these before. Well, you'll see me again do probably videos on it. But let's get to the 394 now of Buckin Billy Ray's. So the 394, it says here, came out in 1991 to 1996. 94 cc's, so that's right on their money of their model number, 94, okay? And the reason it's less cc's because it's got a 38 mil stroke versus the 40 mil stroke that the 1100 and the 2100 had. Has the same cylinder bore though. You can use a 394 or 395 piston in a 2100. You got to modify it a little bit, but it'll work. So yeah, back to the 394 though. It's just a super reliable saw. They came with the low top filter, which a lot of guys like for filing because they lean over their saw and file. They don't have the high top sitting up into their chest, right? And it was a good system. As long as you kept it in good shape. It's like anything. You look after things right, the things will last properly. So on the 394, a lot of the features versus the 2100 is, you got the built-in fast idle through the choke. Once it starts on choke, you push it back in. Fast idle works until you click the throttle off, right? Not where these models where you had to manually put them on and then click the throttle and they come off. So they still had an outboard style clutch, just like the 2100, but a little bit of an improvement. They came with 3 separate springs versus the one garter spring, they call it. These would go once in a while, but not very often. They also came out with a heavy-duty clutch that had bigger springs in it. So they did a couple clutch changes on it. Very nice design cylinder on these. They're just tough. Very good chrome on them. A lot of bottom end in these saws. They worked good. They also came out at this time with the air injection system, right? So, you know, Johnster had called it turbo, but air injection. So what it does is it takes a lot of the crap that comes through the starter. A lot of the crap will blow across the fins of the cylinder while it's cooling it, and it takes a fresh air movement up into the carburetor. It gives it more power and keeps your air filter cleaner. It's just a fabulous system. They've used it for years on different models of Pro Saws. Actually, almost all their models of Pro Saws. And then still has some like that now as well. If you took this saw and completely covered it with a shovel full of sawdust and ran it for a while, just dumped sawdust all over it, you take this filter off, there'll only be a few pieces on the air filter. That's how clean they stay. If you did that to a still, and we did it one time at a meeting, a Husqvarna service dealer meeting, if you took the still like an 066 and done the same thing, the air filter would be completely clogged, like completely clogged. So that's a huge difference in filtration, right? What else did 394 have? They came out with the Walbro carburetor, a WJ series. We had some issues with them after a while when 394s got some time on them. And I've done videos before about that, and I've showed you on the WJ Walbro carburetor how the needle and seat in the metering area, the seats would actually pound down from the vibration of the saw and after it'd been used for quite a while. So the guys would have a crappy time trying to start them when they're hot, and then sometimes they just wouldn't go. So me and my dad had come up with a fix on those carburetors. We would cut the spring a little weaker to change the pop-off pressure. I would drill the pulse hole out for the carburetor out one size bigger, and the idle hole I would make one size bigger, and it helped them out, but your better choice was a new carburetor. And I've showed you in different carburetors in 394s in this WJ series how some of the needles sit flush at the top and some sit way down. The ones that sit way down are the problem ones, because now you got a lot of force and vacuum and atmospheric pressure to make that needle come up, right? So that was the problem with it. Some issues on coils once in a while, but not that often. Throttle cables, switch wires, they would wear out. We had to change them once in a while. Where Husqvarna 2100s and stuff had this steel solid rod to the carburetor. You didn't have that problem. But the reason they went to these throttle cables systems is for vibration. These saws were a heck of a lot smoother than this old 2100. They weren't bad, but a lot of guys complained about them. But these, super smooth. And that's one of the reasons, like I said, they've got the throttle cable like that. Spring mounts on them versus the old rubber mounts that would get deteriorated or get hard. So these mounts would hardly ever go. Once in a while you break a back one, maybe a side one, maybe the front one. But overall, very, very reliable. These were just great saws, you know. And I'll go over the difference between the 395 after on another video. So this saw, Buckins, still was a runner. It was having a little bit of an issue, but we're going to tear it down and rebuild it right from the bottom up. So I'm going to move these saws out of the way now. We're just going to start tearing this down, and I'll talk about the wear spots I see on it as I'm tearing it apart. This might get a little drawn on this video, but it's needed. Buckin's one of my best friends, and he's done a lot for people out there. Just like the fellow that was here last night, my friend Chance Wald. Years ago, when Buckin first started his channel, Chance had all his saws stolen, and he lives down in like around Tacoma area. Well, Buckin went online and told everyone about this, and oh my God, everyone came together in the chainsaw community. One guy drove all the way up from like down in Oregon and took him a brand new 461 still, and other people started sending him stuff. And it's just a very nice gesture to do. And Chance thanks Buckin so much for that. You know, it brought him back to life, and he's been a real saw guy since then. He works on a lot of McCulloughs. He's helping me out with some McCulloughs, and I'm helping him out with some McCulloughs. He comes up here to work on the island, and he's around today. He'll be around later, and maybe we can have a little video with him on some McCullough stuff, okay? But back to Buckin's saw here. It's a real honor to do this for him. We're going to send it to Buckin stock, and everyone can see it there. So let's get on with the 394. I got some tools here. Let's. I always first, you know, have my box here to put all my nuts and bolts in. I don't have to put them in bags and label them. I know what every nut and bolt is. I've done thousands of these saws. Literally, I have. So we're going to start off. I already got the side cover off, and then when I rebuild this saw, I'm going to go over some other stuff about that, okay? So let's get these out of the way and get going on this one, and I'll zoom you in a little bit so you can see me a little better. Beautiful day out there again. We had a little rain yesterday, but no big deal. Makes the grass grow better and people get out and get their gardens done. Okay. Hopefully this is better for you. The lighting in here is not the best, but I'm going to do my best for you. I never went to movie school or to Hollywood. Okay, so let's first talk about the serial number. Like I said, they on Mike's Chainsaw Collector's Corner, they say it was introduced in 91 and discontinued in 96. Well, this is a 99. So that's what it says in the serial number. So I believe they made them up close to around 2000. You know, here we got the 395 says they were made from 2001 to 2005. Well, that's incorrect too. Probably introduced around then, but they are still sold at some dealers if they have any left, because they make them in Brazil now. So, you know, I think Johnny doesn't have any left at our shop, but you can still find them. Great saws. Okay, let's get on this one then. And we'll first start with the side cover, and I'll give you some information about that. These side covers, good brake system. They call this, what they call this is an inertia brake, okay? Where the 2100 and them have that solid steel one on there, and they're a manual brake. They don't have the weight in the handle. And the way this works, if you drop your saw or something, you know, that weight clicks the brake on, right, of the handle. So you don't have to really hit it with your arm. These suckers are tough too. You really got to pull them back, okay? It's a great system. Sometimes these handles would break, but no big deal. That's part of the job, right? The brake band itself now. So that's what I wanted to talk about on these ones. So on 394s and 395s, if you notice the back cover here, you got this little knob here, piece of molding or casting here, that sits up by your sawdust deflector, okay? So it lines up here in this grommet, in this crankcase. This one's missing a bit. And so what happens is, sometimes when you chuck your chains, well, that's what happens. You're chucking chains, and this gets wore off. The chain comes right through here and wears this knob off. So now it's not sitting in this grommet properly. So now the cover is not lined up, right? So it moves around, and the drum starts wearing on the band right in this top area. And that breaks the clutch band, okay? Or the chain brake band, I should say. And that was a bit frustrating, but it would take a while, right? You know, new cover would last a while, but these aren't cheap either. So what you can do is, if this wears off, you can like put a screw in there or something, or make something fit in there, like an insert, and then reposition it into that grommet again on the side here. But other than that, a good setup. The only big problem people had a lot with outboard style clutches, if you get stuck in a log, okay? If you get stuck in a log with these, you just can't take the power head off easily. You physically would have to chop the chain off, and guys do with their axes. They'll smash their chain apart so they can get the chain and bar off this saw to get out of the stuck area. Where at least on a Still or newer Huskies with the inboard clutches, you simply take the clip and washer off, slide the bar and chain off, take your power head, go get your other bar and chain, and you're back to work again. You know, that's what Husky just had this set up until their newest models now, like the 585 and the 390 or 592 that replaces this model now, right? I have one of those over there, 592, but I didn't think we needed to show that today. We're going just up into the 394 era here. So what I do, first of all, the exhaust is already off this. I can see the piston's not in bad shape, but you will see the inside of it in a little bit here. I always like to take the clutch off first, because you need an impact. You should have the engine all together. If you already got the top end off, and you try to whip that clutch off with an impact, your rod will hit around in the case, you can wreck something. So most of the time, these are pretty hard to take off. I end up having to use like a 1/2-inch drive impact air ratchet. I'm sure if you had a 1/2-inch drive, good quality battery one, they make some fabulous strong ones now, you would probably take it off, but I just use this because it whips it off so quick, okay? So let's get it off, and remember, righty loosey, lefty tighty on these. Left hand thread. Okay, easy peasy. Okay, so we got our clutch off. Let's talk a bit about clutch. You know, physically look over the clutch. This one's wearing very evenly. Sometimes the shoes wear uneven. I don't know why, just different hardnesses of clutches, or you know, even in the clutch drum, it could be a different metal, right? All the springs look good in here. This is actually one of the newer style clutches versus the old first 394 ones had smaller springs in it, okay? These ones are a lot beefier and they hardly ever broke. Take off our clutch drum. Have a look at our segment here, our sprocket. He's running a 3/8 8 tooth on it. He had on it. It's in good shape. Clutch drum looks in good shape. Needle bearing looks in good shape. And these, you know, for maintenance, a lot of fallers didn't ever do it because they just don't. But you can grease your clutch drum bearing through the end of the crank with one of those little grease guns that they used to come with. You just pump it in there, right? Or at a shop, you have a little handheld one. So, but the chain oil normally gets in there enough to keep it lubed a bit, okay? That's part of the reason guys don't really need to do it out in the bush. And they're lazy. Hey, you guys, just bugging you. Change your air filter or your fuel filter and your spark plug every month, you guys, and inspect your sprockets. These sprockets should be changed after, you know, 3 or 4 chains wore out, you know. If it's starting to get dished a bit, change it because it throws the pitch off and it's easier for it to fly off once in a while. Okay, kerplunk, let's throw that into the box. Now in here we have the oiler gear. Let's have a quick look at it. Just watch, and that oiler gear has a steel washer in behind it to space it between the crank and the oiler segment, okay? It looks in good shape. It's nothing wrong with it. I'm sure it was working fine. These oilers were really tough. They got an adjustment on the bottom here for minimum and maximum. And these had the inside adjuster for tensioning your bar and chain, which, you know, the new ones are favorable having it on the outside. It makes it a lot easier to get at the screw and just makes it work right. Okay, so we got that side off. Now let's take the top cover off and then our starter off. These top covers, a lot of guys favor the low top, like I said, for leaning over and filing it, and it just wasn't as bulky and banging against the tree or the log as you're falling. So there's your top cover. One thing some guys had problems with was these clips starting to come loose, but if you simply take these clips and just bend them in a bit, it'll tighten up better on your top cover, okay? So we got those 4 off, and I'm just looking at this filter now. This is a nylon type filter. This one's made really more for winter use, okay? If you're like milling wood or something and you're not a real good filer, you get a lot of fines, they will go through this filter a little bit, but not that much because of the air injection system keeps it fairly clean, okay? They have a rubber gasket all the way around it, which you need to keep in good shape. If it's goes missing, then it's going to suck more crap in it, okay? So the flock type filter, the furry one that you can buy as an option, they're better in extreme conditions with dust. The heavy fur dust we get here in the fur bark. The fur bark here, you know, is, you know, 6 inches thick in some cases. I'm not kidding you. So it gets right in there and clogs up your air filter. There was also 2 metal strips that lay on this cover here, which are missing. And that also kept the filter tight and sealed better for better filtration. So we'll be replacing those if we can find a couple. I'm sure I will in my pile of debris back there. Okay, so let's get the top cover off and start having a look at some other stuff that would wear out. The top cover here, you know, the screws stayed in pretty good. Like I say, these saws were smooth and they had a really good balance factor on the crankshaft. They didn't vibrate screws loose as much as some models, like some 390s and 395s. I've noticed top cover screws and stuff mess up, right? But these, yeah, they're just solid. So we got our 3 bolts off. You just uses a Phillips screwdriver. There's the top cover off. So yeah, we need those strips in here, and a bit of the front is broken. So we might find another one for that. We'll see how it goes. Blunt, set that aside. These also had some problems with tank venting. So me and my dad, we started putting these tank vents in here, and this is off a John Surratt. It's a tank valve, okay? So we'd run a different hose into the tank, into this tank vent system off of John Surratt. Then we had a little filter on the end here to filter it so it doesn't get clogged up. I'll just take that off and we'll look at that, how we work that. We put these on all 394s for our logging buddies, so we didn't have problems with the venting of the gas tank. Then later on, we got vented gas caps off of actually brush cutters and started putting them on the fuel tank, so we didn't have to do this. Okay, but that's the John Surratt tank vent system that we'd put on 394s for the loggers. Okay, so another wear factor sometimes is the spark plug lead here. You know, it would start getting wore from the top cover, and the cylinder would rub against the side here. So if you notice this one, we had a piece of rubber here, but the tie strap that would have held this from moving down has broken off. So this wasn't protecting it anymore. It's got a little bit of wear on the plug lead here, but not that bad. We'll probably put a new wire on it when we rebuild it, just because. Okay, so we got top cover off, showed you the tank vent. Now I'm going to take the starter off and talk about a few things of that, and get into it a little bit more. So the starter systems on these were darn good. Hardly any problems with them. The odd spring would wear, but then also the pulley itself, the starter pulley, I call it, where the rope wraps around it, rotor, or whatever you want to call it, would get wore, and then the thing would start moving around in there, and as you run your saw, you notice the starter cord wants to come out of the starter as you're running it. So that was a good indicator that the pulley in here was wore, okay? It took a long time for that to happen, but guys that were using them in the landings and bucking, got a lot of dirt in them and stuff, they would start to wear. So you simply pull your rope out and just feel the play of it. This one's really solid. This one's good shape. Okay, still working fine. You know, I don't know if it's the original rope from the factory. Almost looks like it. You can tell kind of by the melting of the rope on the end. But yeah, good starter system. You know, you got the little pawls on your flywheel here, your switch wire here, which were problems on 394s. You can see this one's kind of hanging out a bit, and it's got a couple wear spots on it. So we'll just take this, they call the air conductor, off now, which is under the starter. And it's an important item too, to keep in good shape, to keep the air volume around the flywheel properly, to make the air injection system work right, to keep the filter clean and your power up on the saw. So switch wire out, plug wire, let's get her out of there, this underneath the case here. Wham bam, there's the air conductor off. Here's your air injection tube here. Sometimes they get debris in there and gets broken. This one's in good shape. But this is how it works. As the flywheel turns around, all the crap's coming up here across the cylinder, and the fresh air on this little part of the flywheel comes up into this tube and blows into your airbox system, into your carburetor. And that's how you get more power and your filter stays cleaner. Okay, so we got that off. That's a lot of dirt in there, and that's a lot of debris around the coil. That's why people should have been taking these apart years ago and cleaning them, because you can lose a bit of spark having this so dirty in there, right? You know, it's grounding out basically in a way. So yeah, coils on these, like I say, were pretty darn good. The odd one would go, but not that often. Most of the problem was that carburetor function I told you about the seat moving. Okay. All right, so let's get our handlebars off and the carburetor. We'll talk about that a little bit. Then we'll get the cylinder off and have a look at the wear of the piston and cylinder. There's no up and down movement on the crankshaft, so I know there's no bottom end bearing issues. You know, they could be wore a bit, but we're going to put new ones in it anyways. We're doing a full rebuild. Bearings, seals, maybe piston. Hard to say. We'll see how it looks first, but I more than likely think that we probably will. You don't need a lot of tools to work on a saw, eh? Like, you know, 4 mil Allen here, a 10 mil socket for the carburetor bolts, a 3 mil Allen for a couple other little screws, but pretty much this 4 mil driver here, you know, I use it on an impact too. I got these nice sockets with Allens on them. Makes it quicker, right? So let's take that off. Our 2 side ones here, or 3, one to the cylinder mount, and the 2 to the back of the tank here. Just a good old saw, these. You know, they found them a little heavy in second growth, so they started using 372s and smaller wood. Kerplunk. These are in good shape. Great, great handlebars. Give you a nice. They fit the tree nice. You get a lot of room on each side with them. They're tremendous. Okay, let's get our carburetor off, and yes, it's the WJ one. And when we go through the carburetor, I'm going to show you guys how that seat's moving, if this one has, and if it hasn't, bonus. Like I said, I don't think this saw, if I had an hour meter on it, which would be kind of cool. I always thought hour meters would be good on saws. A few times when I tested Husky saws years ago for the factory, they actually came with a little hour meter so they could keep track of how many hours are on it, obviously, for testing. They should almost do that for warranty. Have an hour based instead of 90-day warranty, because some guys will buy it in that 90 days, not use it for 30 days, use it for 30 days, then it sits another for 60 days. Now his warranty's up, but he only used it for 30 days. Okay, carburetor, 4 bolts, the two top ones, the 2 long ones in the back. Undo your choke cable here. Choke rod, I should say, not a cable. It's pretty loose. It's kind of wore out. We're going to put a new one of those on when we put it together. The little end of the plastic here gets wore, then it's loose in the fitting there, okay? We've already drained the fuel out of it. So we're going to take the fuel line off. Throttle cable we just undid. So simple, these. Look at that. There's your whole carburetor, your air horn. There's your gasket. Just make sure you keep that gasket in good shape and lined up with your pulse of the carburetor, and we'll go through that on assembly, okay? Yeah, just nice system. Okay, WJ carb. Doesn't look like any of the modifications have been done. Okay, so we got carburetor off, clutch off, oiler gear, mufflers off, starters off. Let's take the cylinder off now and check the wear. Now, it's kind of funny how Husqvarna through the years have only used standard screws in certain places. The cylinder bolts on 2100s, right up to the newest 395. It's still got quarter by 20, I think, quarter by 20 screws. So you need a 3/16 Allen wrench to fit it, not a 5 mil, 3/16. So you got to keep one standard Allen wrench in your toolbox. They get a lot of dirt in these screws, so you got to make sure it's fitting down in there good. Give it a little pound, so the Allen wrench gets in the screw. You don't want to strip these. Oh, come on, baby. Okay, that's moved. Good. Sometimes you want to maybe clean the screw head out, which I do have done in the past quite a few times. They get full of sawdust, right? Okay. That's 3 out of 4. Okay. Okay. There we go. Our 4th one done. Let's look inside. Buckin Billy Ray's $3.94. Line these out with the impact. Should have cleaned this before, but you know what? It's just the way it came. And we will clean it when we put it back together. Okay. Here's our jug and slug. Okay. Wow. It's had some modifications done to it. Lower transfers have been opened up. See if you guys can see that okay. I'll maybe zoom in and show you this cylinder in one sec here. Let's just get all the bolts out of it. And the bolts put into a box here so we don't lose anything. Yeah, it's had lower transfers done. And that looks like about it. No one, the exhaust port has been cleaned up and not ground. I can pretty much tell that I've done lots of these. Piston itself has a little bit of intake wear, just a little scratch, but nothing to be concerned about. Exhaust side looks good. So let me zoom you in here and show you. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay. I know it's a little dark in here. There's the cylinder. You see the lower transfers have been done. Looks in good shape. Chrome's in good shape. Not a lot of carbon buildup. Like I say, I don't think this thing had a lot of time on it. But it looks good. Here's the piston. Good shape. No scoring, just a few little lines on there. Not much carbon buildup. He was using castor oil, I know it for sure. Castrol Super 2-stroke. Probably with Chevron 92 to 94. Bottom bearings all look good. Piston looks pretty darn good. We might not replace it. Okay, so there's no cylinder gasket on this as well. It's had a base gasket delete, and we'll go over the measurements of that when I put it back together. Another thing you want to watch for on these old 394s, we're kind of famous if they're quite old, for the insulator block, the carb block between the carburetor and the motor. Sometimes will crack and suck air, right? So you want to check that out. And make sure the gasket behind it's in good shape, which they normally are. But normally these would get cracked up along here, either from guys smashing the saw or that's really about it. Probably that's the only way they really broke, okay? They're pretty dependable, but just watch you don't have any cracks when you're reassembling them. Put a new gasket in behind here, your new gasket here. This has also had the decomp taken out of it, which on a side type decomp, I don't really remove them all the time. I don't think you need to. The top ones I don't like in the combustion chamber because, like I said, I've seen some fail and some leak and suck air there, lose compression. So there we go. There's Buckin's saw ripped down the top end, and then we'll go through the bottom end after this video. So we're gonna split the bottom end apart, and the next video after that we'll put new bearings and seals in the bottom end and clean it all up and start changing some stuff on it. So what I was talking about, stuff wearing on these, like the throttle cable, you just watch. If you have one of these and all of a sudden the throttle, it's like sucking air, like racing, idling too fast, a lot of times it can be just the throttle cable. So don't think it's got an air leak. These hardly ever had air leaks. Very rare. Very good seals in Huskies compared to other brands of saws. Switch wires, yes, they were a common problem. Switch wires and switches on Huskies have been a bit of an issue for years. Okay, my dad always said to the Husqvarna guys, "What do your cousins make those switches? They're trying to make money." Ha ha ha. Anyways, if you don't have a problem, if you have a problem with your switch and the wire isn't the switch isn't working, check your blue wire. Make sure it's not chafed somewhere and it's connected to the switch properly. Your ground wire here, this black one, make sure it's not broken on the inside of the sheathing. Just kind of pull on it. If it feels spongy, you know, it might be broken, so it's not grounding the switch to shut it off properly. And if it's not running right, like running erratic, sometimes you could have a switch wire arcing against the case, and that makes it want to stop and start, right? Switch problem. So try those things if you ever have ignition problems or a switch problem on a 394 or other type of Huskies. So there you go, Buck and Billy Ray. We got her ripped down, and everyone out there. And next video, we'll be doing the bottom end and taking it apart. And then after that, we'll finish her off, and we'll talk about everything on it, the measurements of it, carburetor. Yeah, should be fun. So keep your saw in the wood, stick in the ash, rubbing her out. Go out, enjoy the day. Go out cutting wood or fishing, or just hanging out, watching some YouTube videos. Anyways, have a great day. Nice to see you all. And we'll see you all again soon. Bye now.